I love a good sticky note wall, right? Like let's get
Yeah.
all the ideas on sticky notes and then we'll put them up there and then we'll prioritize them and then we'll make them happen. Which you've probably seen and it looks like getting feedback from the team. But co-design goes a little bit deeper than that. Co-design and human-centered design really comes out of behavior change strategy. And what we're really trying to do, I think, is to unify around this idea that we want to create a really good employee environment and really good experience for the guest.
What's the one premier event that brings the global attractions industry together? IAPA Expo 2025, happening in Orlando, Florida, November 17th through the 21st.
From breakthrough technology to world-class networking and immersive education, IAPA Expo 2025 is where you find possible.
And just for our audience, you'll save $10 when you register at iapa.org/IAPA Expo and use promo code EXPO, APROS 10.
Don't miss it. We won't.
Welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the Attraction Pros podcast.
Hey, Matt, how's it going?
It's going fan-fear-tastically, Josh. How are you?
I'm good. And that ties into a question I have for you.
Okay, take it away.
I mean, 'tis the season, right? If you're listening to this around the time of the recording, we are in October. So, what's your favorite scary movie?
I'm not really into scary movies, but if I'm going to
I
have to
know.
pick one, I'm going to have to say The Shining
Ooh, that is a
because
good one.
it's one of the few that I've actually seen.
Okay. Okay.
But yes, The Shining. How about you?
I am also going to say The Shining. In fact, total side note story. Many years ago, I auditioned to be a character at Universal for Halloween Horror Nights, and I went like I was wearing like a nice polo shirt and like pressed like khaki shorts, and everyone else was there like in persona as bringing their like monster energy with it. And I was like, I'm not going to get this. And they asked everybody what their favorite scary movie was, and I said The Shining. That was the only question they asked. And then they said this name, this name, this name, this name, this name, please go to the other room. And my name was called. We went to the other room, and we were told that we were hired. So I yeah. Yeah. So
Hey.
I was actually thinking of the movie Paranormal Activity when I was thinking of like maybe like slightly more recent scary movies. Definitely one of the movies that has scared me the most, especially seeing it in theaters. But one thing I remember is right when it came out, not only were they just showing the trailers in the commercial, but they were showing the audience in the theater, and you could see the fear. And in fact, not only were they doing that, but they were also measuring the fear of the audience to demonstrate and showcase, I don't know, what you're paying to go do, I guess, which is not unlike like the theme park industry. You ride a roller coaster, it's like, yeah, you're paying to be scared, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but I hadn't thought of that in many years until this interview today.
So today we get to talk to Heather Doggett, who runs a number of different companies, founder and CEO of Immerse Universe, Masterful Impact Consulting, and Scream Score, which, to your point, measures how scared people are. And she's turned that into a business. She was going to a haunt with her son, or her son had suggested going to one and said, I don't know if I can take it. And so that actually turned into a business where she's working an app with a wearable and to measure how scared people are. And of course, to your point, it's the season of when we get to scare people. So something that really goes together nicely with all the haunts that we have in our industry.
Interesting to hear what inspired this business and the need for it, and then seeing all the other applications. She also talked about the power of theater and made a very compelling case for entertainment in cultural institutions like zoos, museums, aquariums, those that are mission driven, cause driven, and using entertainment to, I would say, transform the guest into taking action and into maybe thinking of things from a different perspective. And I personally found that to be so fascinating.
Absolutely. And whether she realizes it or not, she also made a case for the intersection of the employee and guest experience because I asked her about using that same methodology with team members, and she said it's very similar. And then in my mind, I go, okay, well, it's the guest and the team member experience. Now we're at the intersection, and of course, we're talking about human beings. So of course, the psychology is going to be very similar. But one of the other fascinating things she talked about was co-designing experiences with your staff. So instead of sitting in your office designing your next orientation program or whatever program you need for them to engage with, get their input. And it's beyond just focusing on the ideas that you come up with, but also how those ideas are facilitated, how those ideas are followed up on, and to use the word again, how that experience really immerses the team members in what they're doing.
So, should we put on our wearable and see how scary this interview with Heather is?
Ah, yes, it's very scary. Run! Well, hello, Heather. Welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast. How you doing today?
I am incredible. I'm here with you all.
We are so excited to have you here. So excited for this conversation. Can you start us off by telling us a little bit about your career and what you do?
Well, gosh, I started out as a zoologist. I really wanted to work with animals, and then they gave me a microphone, and that was a giant mistake. At 16, I started doing big microphone presentations at a zoo. I was doing animal care, I was doing docent and interpretive. So I just loved the zoo and aquarium world. And that's where I spent my career of about 35 to 12 years. Don't count how old that makes me. I started as a 13-year-old volunteer at a zoo in Santa Barbara, California. And I went to college for zoology. And that's what I did up until about 2.5 years ago. Now, my career in zoos and aquariums went from animal care to interpretation to education to staff development and training to operations and then chief operations and then a lot of exhibit design. And what I found I was doing, and this will lead into the next part, I was bringing in experiences very often in seasonal events. I just knew the power of theater. I almost became a theater major at one point, and I knew that seasonal overlays and big events, and specifically interactions with really engaged staff or actors, was powerful, and that there was something in the power of entertainment that could really benefit the guest experience at a cultural institution like a zoo or aquarium. So I started a theater troupe called Theater Gone Wild in the early 2000s, and I did a lot of events during my career. So, and then 2.5 years ago, I decided to try something totally different. I left my job, moved my family, and I started something called Immerse Universe. And that was the first of 3 businesses in the last 2.5 years. So, yeah, I think I would say overall, I'm a data head who loves theater and cares deeply about the experience of the staff and the experience of the guest.
The first of 3 businesses in 2.5 years. There's definitely a lot to unpack there. But before we get to that, I'm curious actually if we can go a little bit deeper into what is it about the power of theater and entertainment
Mm.
within a cultural attraction, that is a zoo, an aquarium, a museum that has such a strong educational focus of, I guess, being able to connect the content to the guest in a way that's compelling.
I love you for that question, Josh. So I knew there was something about awe and magic and surprise. And I knew that amusement parks, magicians, parades had that. And we really had that only in whatever the animals might be doing. But that was kind of unpredictable. And sometimes they were sleeping, sometimes you couldn't see them. And what I later found out that there's actually something that happens more psychologically when you are experiencing a sense of awe. And it's a really beautiful thing. It is that you are more open to considering different perspectives. You are more open to considering doing different things in your life or in behaviors. You are more open to seeing different points of view and trying something that you've never tried before. This is why you might be dancing in a parade all of a sudden because you're feeling the moment. You might be in the middle of a dance floor and you feel like time is not existent and you're just in the middle of the dance floor and you're having this moment of awe. It is psychologically powerful. And so if an environmental organization or a mission-based organization can create moments like that and then provide support to the audience for them to do something that helps the cause at the same time or after, it's kind of like the magic sauce. I mean, it is the best of both worlds because it's an incredible experience for the guests and they want to come and have fun. I mean, even me as an environmentalist doesn't say, hey, let me go to the Climate Change is Killing Us Museum because I want to learn. I want to go and see something that is fun to talk about and hopeful. And so hope is also a little bit woven into this as well, because being able to set aside things you're worried about and see a potential new future, new being the key word, that can happen when you're having a moment of awe and beauty and spectacle and magic and sparkles and silly and fun. If a mission-based organization knows how to take that moment, first how to create it, and then how to take that moment and provide you whatever you needed to do the thing that you really already kind of wanted to do. You care about the issue, you care about the planet, you care about your community, but signage and information is not really a good motivator. But if I'm going to feel optimistic and happy and connected to the people around me, we're having this moment, then so much can happen. And that is really, this is why I see the power of entertainment working so well with cause-based organizations if it's done well and if you know what to do after. And I should say, if you just do a lot of like pizzazz and spectacle without knowing the other pieces, it also doesn't work. And so that's why I think it works really well for me as a science person, needing to know the psychology, and then the old theater dork kid wanting to create the magic.
So this is fascinating to me because as my mind is thinking through this, as you might expect, I'm thinking about the employee experience, right? So much of what you talked about, the parades and the spectacle and the magic, like we think about that for the guests, and a lot of people are talking about that. A lot of people are designing those experiences. But where I think we could really use help with this kind of thinking is with the employee experience. So can you talk us through maybe how this works on the other side of the gate, if you will?
Yeah. So it's actually much the same thing. If we're trying as a cause-based organization or a management team, and we want something to happen, we have an outcome that we're going for, which is everybody's going to be super sparkly and know how to support the guests. We need to understand what is the barrier right now for that to happen. And there isn't one answer to that because everybody's an individual, but we're working with barriers and benefits and motivations. A lot of this has to do with engagement and overlaps with measurements of staff engagement and feeling welcome and feeling a part of something. And it's not so much always about values, because usually the values, when they're hired, if you do a great hiring process, they have the values. But there's something else that isn't making them feel supported or authentic in what you're asking them to do. And so, much like we think about these questions for the guest and why we might want them to help elephants or endangered species and what's preventing something to happen there, we would also want to ask the same questions of the staff. And co-designing is a scary word, but I'm telling you, it is the can opener to the special sauce. Co-designing experiences with staff, it isn't something that can be done hastily and not facilitated well, because you can go kind of crazy. But there are experts in co-designing for experiences that make a difference. And the same process we would use for designing an experience that gets the audience to a place we want them to be and where they want to be. I would say co-designing the employee experience is something that not a lot of people have done. We do a lot of evaluation of where they are now, and then we do some training, we do a lot of pizza, and then we reevaluate. But co-designing what it would look like for them to be authentic and to be able to really be in their flow is something I don't see a lot of, and I think could be a really neat thing to explore. But it is about knowing it's not all one size fits all, and that it can't be prescribed. Now, I understand sometimes when you're doing character development and you need to be the pirate that does the thing, there's certain things and certain behaviors that more in a casting situation is going to be very prescribed. But for the person that is selling ice cream, or the person that has to deal with the grumpy people at the ticket booth, just having a prescribed guest recovery program may not, it's a good start, but it may not be where you want to stop. I would say, what do you think is meaningful? If you, as a representative audience member, was having this issue, what would be meaningful to you? What is your dream of things that you wish you could offer? And then, of course, providing guidelines around that and how can they do it and making it easy so that they have ownership and they feel authentic and powerful to help. Because I think people ultimately, for the most part, want to help and they want to have a good experience themselves. So those are some of the things I would think about.
That's so fascinating. So co-designing experiences with the staff. I'm jotting down a whole bunch of notes here and connecting all these dots here. Of you talk about guest recovery. That's one of the biggest things that I focus on with my clients, and being able to really use guest recovery for example, as a growth strategy. But then when if just to make sure that I understand it right, co-designing it is that it's not simply training, here is how you do it. It is involving the employee in how are we going to do that, and giving them more ownership of the outcome.
It is, and I love a good sticky note wall, right? Like let's get
Yeah.
all the ideas on sticky notes, and then we'll put them up there, and then we'll prioritize them, and then we'll make them happen. Which you've probably seen, and it looks like getting feedback from the team. But co-design goes a little bit deeper than that. Co-design and human-centered design really comes out of behavior change strategy. And what we're really trying to do, I think, is to unify around this idea that we want to create a really good employee environment and really good experience for the guest. So what does that look like, and why is it hard to do that now? So it's not even just about ideas. It's somewhat about that, but even if we had really good ideas, you can see sometimes the eye roll in the back of the room, like, that's never going to happen. They're never going to let us do that. We tried to do that last time. The hell I can do that. The barriers and the benefits of keeping the same are really important. What is the benefit to not trying extra hard? What is the benefit to just clocking in, clocking out, getting in the car and going home? We have to come up with, as a group, a benefit that is higher than that. So that's actually going to be less convenient. So how, and this is what happens when we're designing an experience for a guest and we're saying, hey, save the elephants. Well, there's a lot that's inconvenient. It might be expensive. It might be uncool. It might be, I'm not a hippie. So when we look at changing behavior for an audience, it's the same thing for staff and being really empathetic and understanding, okay, the benefit to just getting in the car, clocking in and out is pretty high because it's easy, you know it, you've had the job for 15 years. What would be additional benefits that are better than that? Or how can I decrease a barrier? What is a barrier that is preventing you from taking those extra steps? And then the other thing is maybe it's not cool. So we talk a lot about, and I like this. It's not mine. It's in a lot of books. But is it easy to do? Is it popular to do? And is it fun to do? And if we're looking at stuff for staff and developing programs for them that is not fun, easy, or popular, that's going to be really, really tricky. It doesn't mean we can't do it. I mean, safety, ladder safety. Love ladder safety. Um, I do, but I really do. But I wouldn't say it's like super popular. So how can we gamify things? How can we make people not think that they are on the outside of what's popular? So these are all behavioral tools that are used a lot by behavioral scientists. And the coolest thing in the world is when we pair this kind of thinking with a really incredible experience for the audience, but also for the staff. And when I say experience for the staff, break rooms, clock in, reviews, like walking, what kind of vehicles, crummy rakes, like that's part of the experience for a staff person.
Absolutely. And one of the things that Josh and I talked about on a previous episode was this concept of the immersive employee experience, right? So often we talk about immersive experiences for the guests. And then to your point, we have this wonderful experience and everything is just perfect and the lights and the music. And then you walk backstage and it's like this, it's like a hospital.
Yeah.
And it's not themed at all. Then you go to the break room and the couch has a missing leg and it's all wonky and the microwave smells like popcorn and whatever it is, like it just takes you out of that realm. And I'm curious, like if we can even get back to some of the things you do with your clients and with your businesses, because one of them is called Immerse Universe, and you've got two other businesses. And can we go a little bit deeper into some of the things that you do with your clients to kind of help maybe bring all these things together?
Yeah, well, and I'm trying my best. So, I hope I'm bringing it together. Um, so I think I'm a bit of a dreamer. So we're always going to talk about what's the big, hairy goal? What does success look like? How would you know if you're successful? Um, I I think there's a term called vanity metrics. I use it a lot, which is we're measuring the things that we know that we have access to measuring. And I think that's a really, really important part of all of this is one question, is that what you really want to measure, or is that just what you have access to? So like attendance, revenue, engagement scores, missed punches or whatever. Is that really a measurement of success, or is that just what you have? And then if you were to measure something really significant, would you be ready to change it once you see it? And that question, I think, is really, really important when we're like designing experiences and we're looking for impact. So a lot of what I do has to do with impact. And the question is, if you measure this thing or we really dig into it, are you prepared to be uncomfortable and change something, or maybe even spend extra money to make that number or that metric go up. And you'd be surprised, especially in exhibit design, how often it's like, yeah, we kind of don't have any more money. Like that was it. That was the capital campaign. And if we find out that that exhibit or experience is not that impactful, we don't have money to do anything about it. So, getting in early with a client and talking about how we're going to really evaluate and like design for impact is, I think, important. So, some of the things that I've done with Immerse Universe. Funny thing, when I named it, I thought I was going to be doing all these really immersive like lighting shows. I was going to produce them, and we're going to be immersed in the universe for change, you know. And that's what happens when you sit on your couch and pick a name. Um, so I actually love it, and I do want to be immersed in the universe and make it the best that you can be. But really, what it is designing experiences for change. And that doesn't have to be environment, that can be social, that can be an experience for your staff. And we use human-centered design, we use co-design, and I created something called a behavioral hackathon. It's a 3 to 5 day experience. We've done it as short as 2.5. And we come in and we create this motley crew of people who are going to co-design an experience. And then we also do big data evaluation outside of that room. So more numbers amplify the data. And then I'll tell you what it is. It's like your best friends by the end of the 3 to 5 days. We have behavioral scientists. We have cause experts. So let's use in the world of environmentalism, it might be a climate scientist. We have designers like puppeteers, Imagineers, improv people, set designers, and people who have never designed for the content. And that's super important. Then we have communicators. So they're going to be marketing or education type people, and then usually a client. And we make teams. So at every table, we've got representatives of all of those groups. And then we invite in representative audience members, and they co-design with those experts for those 3 to 5 days. And so representative audience members, you need to know who your audience is and who would be likely to go, and they become part of the team. At the end, you come up with something somewhere between blue sky concept, and it goes back to the designers and the client. They continue to develop, and then at certain points, they touch base back with the client, or well, not the client, the customer. So the customer that was there continues to see the iterations of design and says, "Oh, we've totally lost something. You took that little thing out." And that was like incredibly important for us to be ready to act or to participate for the cause. You took it out because you thought it was no big thing. You got to keep that and figure something else to engineer out. And so then you do what you would normally do. You do prototyping, you do walkthroughs, and then you open, and then you do a whole lot of impact measurement at the end. So that's the process that Immerse Universe refined through Johns Hopkins University behavioral scientists. So they really are the experts, and they worked with me to apply what they've done and always do to entertainment that's live entertainment and for other causes outside of health. So they've done a little bit with climate, but I told them I wanted to do anything entertainment for any cause, and we came up with a new system to do that. Some of the events we've done are things like Wild Ink, which is a live tattooing event for endangered species, not tattooing the endangered species, but tattooing the people. And when we do that, we have several layers of actions. So the deep, like think of swimming. The person who is a deep dive is going to be lined up for the tattoo. The person who is just barely wading into the water is going to be voting on the tattoo gallery and contributing that way and donating money. So we're looking at different layers of participation of the event. So that's something that Immerse Universe does. And then people told me I should do business consulting because I've done a lot of what does it take to make the magic that the guest sees happen behind the scenes. So I do a lot of that strategic planning, feasibility, market research, um, individual coaching with executives, succession plans, reorg. What do you want? We got it. Because I've done it from a nonprofit perspective, and I really enjoy the frame of the vehicle as much as I like the paint job. I need like a solid
Yeah.
frame of safety and purpose and strategy and measurement, and then I want to have like flames on the side of the car. Um, and yeah, and then the last almost accidental um, company that I started, which was about 2 years ago, 2 years ago now, was Scream Score, and that is a biometric app. So it measures the body's response to live entertainment and it gamifies it. And that happened because I was sitting on my couch again, and my 14-year-old son said, "Hey, Mom, you've designed haunts and you're super cool." I think he said that. He's like, why don't we go to a really scary haunted house, haunted attraction? And I have some heart conditions that are newly diagnosed. And I said, I don't think I can go because there's this giant safety sign that says if you have a heart condition, you can't go. And then my husband said, well, how do you really know how scary it is? And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I mean, like heart wise, how do you know? Has anybody ever measured that? And there are definitely academics. I've got a great friend named Colton who does measure that in an academic environment. And there's been like, some newscasters who've done things with heart rate monitors, but nobody had a product that the guest could use that was like mainstream. So my little zoology self decided to start a tech company, and now Scream Score is out on the market, and people can compete with their friends to see who is the most scared on a roller coaster, escape room, or haunted house. And I think the coolest thing is a year later, that same haunt that he wanted to go to actually beta tested my software for me, which was like so cool. Shout out Legends of the Fog. So yeah, so now I have a mobile app that can measure fear, but can also measure three other emotions, which we haven't talked too much about yet, but I think can help operators and can help museums. So that'll probably be 2026 is kind of busting out. We are using the name experience score for the other emotions that we can measure. And for those who love show control, we are fairly sure we can integrate this into show control to have a fully responsive environment to what the group or an individual is feeling. And there could even be challenges like, okay, group, you've got to bring your score down. And if you bring it down, something is going to happen that you don't expect. Or let's get really hyped. And if we can get really hyped as a room, then something is going to happen. And that's real. And we can do that. Um, we think. So we're in R&D for that now. So yeah, that's what happens when you take somebody who should have like a regular job and let them create their own thing. And I'm learning a lot. I wouldn't say I'm done. I want to keep evolving.
This
That
is
was
all
a
so
lot.
cool. Uh, so without diving too much into the secret sauce, I am very curious. How does Scream Score or even Experience Score, how does it work?
Yeah, no, it's the secret sauce is not so secret. I mean, it is through wearables. And so if you think about the apps that talk about, oh, you're kind of stressed today. This would not be a good day to make a big decision. Or um, looks like you didn't get a lot of sleep. So your reserves or your stress response is going to be kind of on edge. That's the same technology that we're using. So we use there's about 70 wearables that can measure that kind of stress response. So it's not just heart rate. Now, heart rate is fun and it measures excitement. It also measures movement to a degree and exercise. So when you're looking at like a haunt, that's not a great way to measure how scared somebody is because they're doing running. They might be chased by a chainsaw. Um, just having an elevated heart rate also, a lot of people have just higher heart rates. And that isn't a really good indication because my son is normally in the 60s. I'm usually at the 90s. And if I measured right now, I'm probably at 200. So, everybody has a different heart rate. So you can't really gamify that very easily. But the thing that is special with us is we take your historical data because you have this on most of the time, or at least in the car. And so we're kind of like creating a new baseline for everybody. So everybody starts on the same level, and it's not just heart rate. And so we're measuring the stress response, or what you would call the fight or flight. And we have a little talk at IAPA, which we're going to talk about fight or flight and freeze or fawn. And those are different coping strategies. So we're really looking at fear and we're also looking at contentment. It is through heart rate, but it's like heart rate variability and how quick it's changing and things like that. That's why a $12 heart monitor on Amazon doesn't work with our system because our system is, we would say, definitely a serious nod to the medical research out there as to what really makes people scared. Because me, being the nerdy scientist, didn't just want something that was a promise that didn't have something behind it. So yeah, so there's Fitbits that work, Samsung, Google, Apple Watches that all work. And then I think the question is, well, wait a minute. What if I don't have one of those? Then I can't play. Well, two things about that. We don't really charge for the app. It's a free app. So that's one thing that kind of mitigates that feeling of missing out. But I still don't want people to miss out. So there's ways we're finding some of the operators are offering it at a higher price point. Like you can rent them, or if you have media or influencers, you want to make sure that they can play it, then there's ways to do that. But we're also looking at our own wearable and trying to crack that nut as to how that might be possible. Because I mean, that's the ultimate. It's just like the 3D glasses that you put on in Captain EO, old school, you know. Um,
Good throwback.
I mean, that's kind of where we're going. Um, but it's little me with my little old zoology self. So it's taken time to get there and to figure it out. But that's what we're also looking into.
So cool. And I'm glad you mentioned IAPA because this episode will air just about a month before the IAPA Expo. And you and I and Scott Swenson have been working on a session that we're super, super excited about, the terrifying leadership experience. And we are going to use some elements of Scream Score in there. So I'm curious if you can maybe give people a little teaser about what that program is going to be all about.
Our IAPA,
Yeah.
well, goodness, if Matt, if you can corral Scott and my hat's off to you. But we, because we've worked together, we have a lot of fun. Um, So what's interesting about fear, and here's something fascinating about me. I love to create haunts and I cannot handle them as a customer. I love to create them. I love the science of fear. I love seeing something and like at a convention and going, that is really scary and messed up. Like I would not want to see that because I authentically still feel that fear. So I think it helps me design. Um, but what's weird is fear, and that fight or flight response. The very same physical thing happens in the workplace when you're scared of something. The reptilian brain or our fight or flight brain does not know if it is a real monster thing happening, um, or if it's a fake monster thing at a haunted attraction, or if it is a really scary annual review. Like all of those are scary, and the body responds really in the same way. So we're talking about you get sweaty, your hands get clammy, your eyes get really dilated, you get tunnel vision, you think you're going to faint, but you're actually probably not because biologically that's not beneficial in fight or flight, but you feel like you might. You start getting nauseous, and that's because your digestive system has frozen. You might feel like you have to pee your pants. And you might pee your pants in a haunt, but that's because also your bladder has sort of stopped functioning in the same way because your body is pushing all of its resources to getting ready to handle whatever the threat is. So some of the same biological responses happen in leadership, in management, or in an employee situation. You get a really angry guest screaming at you, you're going to feel a lot of those same feelings. I've had that happen. I've had pickles thrown at me. Yeah, pickles. So you're feeling the same. You get sweaty under the armpits. You want to leave, or you want to get angry, or you just freeze and don't know. So this is what we're going to be talking about at the IAPA session is that yes, it's playful to talk about fear response with haunts and fake monsters. And what's crazy is it's a huge industry that people want to go feel that when they know the fear or the threat is not real. But what do you do when you're in a work environment and not only is the threat probably real, you think it is, but also there are multiple layers of that threat. Like I might lose my job and then I can't pay my bills and then my parents are going to get mad at me and then I don't get my cool car with the flames and like all these things are happening. So the levels of fear in a work environment create strange coping mechanisms. And that's what we're going to talk about in the session is that's going to happen and you almost can't control it. The fight or flight is something that just happens. You can get better at controlling it, but there's going to be something that happens at work that surprises you sometimes. And it might be public speaking. You have to go up on stage and do a thing. You have to give a really hard review. You have to talk and have a really difficult conversation with a nasty person. Um, how do you handle that? And what your body's doing? I think it helps to understand it. And then there's some magic tricks that can help you take that fear biological response and get it into something productive. And that's really getting you into the parasympathetic side of things, which is where you can think more logically, you can weigh choices, you can give yourself more time. Um, Fight or flight is sympathetic. So the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. See, I told you I was a scientist. That is what is allowing us to survive. And some of that is really happening quickly. And as a leader, there's ways and tricks that we're going to talk about at IAPA that allow you to kind of harness that and not be a bad manager. Because a lot of bad management things that we see have to do with coping poorly to the biological response, if that makes sense. So yeah, come and see us. We're going to talk about it.
And what day and time is that session?
It's
That's
on Wednesday
If
at I think 10:30 in the morning or 10 in the morning.
Wednesday, yes, 10 a.m. to 11:30 in S310 AB. I'm only bringing that up because as you just described that, Heather, I just came up with like 10 follow-up questions that I want to ask you, but I'm not going to ask you now. I'll just come to the session and learn about it all right then. And I think that's a great takeaway for anyone listening to this as well. That was uh, not that it was a shameless plug for the session or not, but it was a great preview and promotion for it. I mean, this is just so fascinating. I'm curious to learn so much more about this. But in the meantime, if people wanted to get a hold of you directly, or if they wanted to learn more about any one of your three businesses, where would you send them?
Um, I think the easiest one right now, especially as we come into IAP, is Scream Score. So if you go to the website, is thescreamscore.com. And at the bottom, there's an email there, and there's also some ways to send us a note. If you want to reach me directly, it's Heather D at thescreamscore.com. And that's probably the easiest way, but I'm on the LinkedIn and I'm on Instagram trying to figure that out. Shout out to our social media people because as a sole person, boy, that's a steep learning curve. So, and I think I would just welcome everybody's ideas. What are you trying to do in your experiences? Whether it's emotion metrics or it's impact design, what are you trying to do? And let's have a creative conversation, just get to know each other and learn from each other. Matt really is the genius behind our IAPA panel and was the one that invited me to participate. And so I'm just grateful to be bringing such an interesting little connection of threads together with monsters and fear and leadership. I think this is going to be really powerful and fun.
It absolutely will be fun. There might even be costumes. If
Oh,
you want to give that away, I don't know, maybe. But Heather, this has been an amazing conversation, as I knew it would. Just like Josh, I have like 1,000 more questions, even though I know you. I've been working with you for the last year on the IAPA program, but can't wait to talk to you more. But in the meantime, for everybody out there who's watching and listening, just remember, we are all attraction pros.